Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Alana and today we're going to talk about my top 10 picks. Firstly, we have Evie Cam happening in the background. She's having a big old nap in the sun as it comes across. So also apologies for brightness right here. This is why I'm also over here. It's fine. Now these books will not be ranked in any particular order because please do not make me choose. This was already hard enough to put together because I have read over 70 books this year. Are you joining us? She's so tired. Like, look at it. Look at it. Evie, okay? So instead, I have a big old stack of books right here, which I'm just going to randomly grab from. And the top one is a Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book in the Mistborn trilogy within the first arc of the story. I get very confused of where to go after this one. So if you know, drop it in the comments down below. Because otherwise I'm going to have to Google things. I don't want to get spoiled for potential things in other books. But this is The Hero of Ages, book 3, yes, in the Mistborn trilogy. And I absolutely loved this. I loved where the story ended up. I loved the play of the title within the story as well. An unexpected character that I really just adored in this as well was Spook. How he came back into it with a little bit more of a role. And I loved this push and pull between ruin and preservation throughout this. I also love that we got a lot of payoff moments within this, in which I mean we learn a lot of the secrets that were put forth in book 1 and book 2. We get a lot of info in this one and I loved it for it. It's also very chunky, so it can take a little while to get through it. It's over 700 pages long, but I'm very grateful that I picked this up and that I can now continue on in the Cosmere universe. I've got this first trilogy on my shelves and I've also got Skyward and Starsight as well. And I have heard that his books all link somehow, but as of yet, I am still unaware and I'm still in the dark with a lot of things. So don't spoil me, but just tell me which book I should pick up after this, because at the start here, I think it might be The Alloy of Law, but I'm unsure. But this was great. This is epic fantasy. So good. Next up, let's do one that I don't have a physical copy of, and that is Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Wow, this is one of this author's best books. If you love The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which a lot of people did, you do this one, try this one, go for this one. This is also the type of book to make you get up and go for it and achieve your dreams. It gives you that inspiring just do it type attitude. In this, we follow Carrie Soto, who is a retired tennis champion. She has a world record of winning X amount of Grand Slams, and a younger tennis player is about to break her own record. So she decides to come out of retirement and she has this goal of winning another Grand Slam. I loved Carrie as a main character and I think that is why I adored this one so very much. She is not a likable character through other people's point of views. She is very abrupt and to the point and aiming for her own goals and won't let anyone else get in the way of that. But because we see things from her own perspective, I loved her. She's very self-aware though, which is why I say that you can love her from her own point of view, but maybe not so much from other people's. But again, there is also a little bit of a romance in this too, but it doesn't take as much of a forefront. This is Carrie's story and it's brilliant. There's also the relationship between her and her father who taught her tennis, and there's a whole bunch of things going on in this, and what you need to know is even if you don't like tennis, pick it up because this is more than just a story about tennis. It is about your dreams, your aspirations, not being done yet, and it was brilliant. I read it in 2 or 3 days. And this one is contemporary fiction. Next up, we have a biography, and this is one that was just very profound and again inspiring, and that is The Storyteller by Dave Grohl. Oh my god, I listened to the audiobook of this one, which is why I haven't yet got a physical copy of it, and if you love a good biography, if you don't read biographies very often, if whatever, just pick this one up. This is a showcase of different stories throughout Dave Grohl's life, and if you listen to the audiobook, he actually narrates it himself, which I think is an excellent way to go with this one. He talks a little bit about the Nirvana days and the toxic stardom around that. He talks about Foo Fighters. He talks about raising kids. He talks about his life as he's lived it and just all the different experiences he's had along the way, and his outlook on life is what was so inspiring in this too. He comes across as a very regular guy. He's very humble throughout this, and wow, yeah, I went on a binge of watching video clips that he mentioned throughout this. But yes, this is incredible, and the title is very fitting as well because I feel like his role in life is as a storyteller. Next up, we have something that I recently finished, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is Leigh Bardugo's foray into adult fantasy, urban fantasy, and it was brilliant. It was gritty, it was dark, it was occulty, it was something else. It's the best thing that she's ever written, hands down. I have read the majority of her backlist, and she is never as good as when she is being gritty and when she's got you by the throat. And Alex Stern, the main character in this, is a character who will get you by the throat and pull you along with her. This one also takes place at Yale University, and Alex is part of the Ninth House, part of Leith, who is there to police the other 8 secret society houses who dabble with magic. And there's this conversation of what magic would actually look like in our world if it was utilized by money-hungry, greedy people. And that is a discussion that I really enjoyed in this one. There's a whole bunch of other things happening in this. Just know that this is slightly more on the grim dark side of things. So if you've just read Shadow and Bone and you think, maybe I'll go for this, just be aware that this is adult fantasy, and at one point you'll see someone's innards being pulled out of their body so that they can read them and fortune cast the stock market. Like it's that type of level of grit. But it's amazing. Second one comes out very, very soon, and I've already read it. There'll be a vlog for that coming out, and it was great as well. We are halfway through this list, so book number 5 that I want to talk about is a teen fiction murder mystery novel, and you've probably already heard about it because it is very popular, but it is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is another one that I consumed via the audiobook, and again, I would recommend this as the way to read it, although the physical one is also quite good. I read book number 2 with the physical book and listened to the first one in audiobook. So in this one, we follow 17-year-old Pippa, who has decided for a school project, as you do, to investigate a murder that happened a few years ago and absolutely destroyed a couple of families within her small town. There's also a podcast type element to this, which is why I say the audiobook is a great way to go, because you get the differing sounds that come with that. The production quality of this audiobook was the best. Probably one of the best ones that I listened to this year as well. But yes, it is very bingeable, and I would rate this above One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. So if you enjoyed that one, you're in for a real treat with this one. Next up, we have one that surprised me because it wasn't on my radar at all, and then we got sent a copy at work. And oh my god, I'm so grateful for Pantera Press for sharing this, and it is The Branded by Joe Riccioni. I'm gonna go ahead and chuck the image up here so you don't get the sun in it. But in this one, we follow an orphan called Nara, and her and her sister are part of the Pures within this class society. This is a dystopian fantasy novel where the world's been split into Pures and the Branded. And the Branded people have marks upon their skin. They're more susceptible to disease and all of that type of thing, whereas the Pure are pristine and are the next breeding people to continue the world, essentially. There's a lot going on in this one. It gave me Katniss from the Hunger Games type vibes with our main character. It gave me the Handmaid's Tale vibes with the whole breeding the next population thing. It gave me a lot of adventure and a lot of tidbits along the way. So this is a very bingeable fantasy, especially if you've loved things from Sarah J Maas, from Jay Kristoff, from Lexi Ryan. This is just an auto buy for your shelves. I also like a bit of a dystopian setting like that, and I like a breakdown of society into different groups and whatnot, and this gave me all of that, and I smash read this in less than a week. It's also book 1 in a series, and I think book 2 comes out in 2023, so I'm very excited to continue the journey with Nara and Co. Next up, we have an epic sci-fi space opera book, and this is another really popular one that took me a while to get around to, and then the audiobook came up, so I just thought I would do it. I'm really glad I did, and that is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, who, fun fact, is actually 2 authors put together. So in this one, this kicks off the Expanse series. So if you've heard of that, it's an Amazon Prime TV show. I tried to watch the first season, couldn't quite get into it, but I might try it again. But this first book is extraordinary. I also really like how it meshes the big sci-fi space opera genre, because you've got people living in the outer belt and you've also got the people still on Earth. So there's that whole society divide and the prejudices that come along with that. You've got that, but you've got something as simple as a murder mystery. So this element of a murder mystery binds this super big, ambitious, multiple book spanning plot together, and I really, really liked it. It's also got the humor that I like as well, which is tongue-in-cheek. Oh, it was great. Are you okay? Oh, we're just readjusting. Next up, we have another biography for the list. 2022 was really a year of me enjoying a select few in the biography genre, but loving what I read, and that is 10 Steps to Nanette by Hannah Gadsby. This is honest, it's explosive, it's humor, but with a point to it, and it made me go and binge watch the stand-up show surrounding this narrative, and just to Google things that came up within the book, because this is a look at Hannah Gadsby's life, and alongside that it delves into the political climate in Tasmania throughout Hannah's life as she is experiencing things that will then impact her. And this is what made me Google some things, because it does show what it was like to be gay in Tasmania in the 90s, etc. And some of the things you just end up shaking your head at and going, how did that happen? It's also a look at how she interacts with fame, her life as an autistic person, and where she's at with comedy and in her life so far. Hannah also narrates this herself, and it's amazing. It's amazing. And you don't have had to have watched Nanette to have read this book. Like I said, I did the book first, and then I went back and watched the stand-up show, which is on Netflix, I think. And I think this was a great way to do it as well, because you get all of the things behind it, and then you get to watch the stand-up show, and holy shit, it makes it so much more powerful. Like, it's already powerful, but knowing all of the things behind it, it's great. It's great. Second to last, we have Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey, and this is my literary fiction pick of the year. Wait, the next one is also literary fiction. But if you have someone in your life who enjoys a hard-hitting fiction type book, this is what I would get them. In this one, we follow Inti, who is in Scotland, and she is looking into the conservation of wolves. They're trying to re-establish them into the Scottish landscape, and there's some pushback from the local people because of that, but it's also a look at Inti's life and what's led her up to this point. So big themes of rewilding within this one, also of family trauma and the things we carry on from our parents. There's the theme of survival and having the skill set to survive out in the wilderness. And yeah, the whole conservation thing, and how if you take one thing out of the ecosystem, it can change and have a ripple effect of everything around it. And I learned a lot reading this. Like, I didn't realize how essential the wolves were to the landscape around them. This one's also described as part thriller, part redemption love story, and I think that hits it right on the head, because you've got the relationship between Inti and her twin sister Aggie, as well as the fact that a dead body is discovered towards the start of this story, and the locals point to the wolves as the culprit for this, and we've got to work out if that is the case or not. Inti as a main character as well is very impulsive and very much wears her heart on her sleeve. And although at times this felt like a lot, it also felt very real to the story. And I ended up adoring her as a main character, just to see the stuff that she goes through, to see her fight for her beliefs and her passions, and Oh, also the ending of this, wow. So yes, pick this up, you'll learn a lot from it, it will make you think about a lot of different things, and I hope you love it as much as I did. And then finally, I did say at the start of this that this list was in no particular order, which was mostly true, but I did save the best till last. My top read of 2022 was Horse by Geraldine Brooks. I loved this. It's giving me goosebumps just thinking about it again. Let's go ahead and chuck the image up here for you. So this is historical fiction / contemporary fiction. In this one, we are following 3 different timelines. We are following people from the 1850s, we are following people from the 1950s, and then from 2019. So in this one, there are some really big discussions as well, because the 1850s timeline, we are following Jarrett, who is a young black American slave, and he works on a racehorse stud. His dad is a free man, which means that he has bought himself out of slavery, but Jarrett, his son, is still owned by the people who run this stud. And this tells the story of how Jarrett's fate is combined with the racehorse Lexington. Now, I love this book because, again, it had me Googling different periods in history, and Lexington was a real life racehorse in America who actually went on to sire a whole bunch of different winners throughout history. Now, we know a lot about Lexington. We've got history written on him, but we don't know much about Jarrett, and that's where the author brought this character to life. Because in a painting by Thomas J. Scott, there is Lexington, and then beside him is a groom. And this is the author spinning the story of Jarrett to try and give him a space within history. In the 1950s timeline, we follow an art critic and connoisseur called Martha, who again was a real life person, Martha Jackson. And then finally in the 2019 timeline, this is where we have the fictionalized characters, so the contemporary fiction element comes into it, but it's based off of very real undercurrents of things that are happening today. So we follow Jess, who is a white woman, she's a scientist, and we also follow Theo, who is a black PhD student, and it's how they crossover and how their lives are influenced again by this painting of Lexington. So this painting travels throughout the 3 different timelines, and we've got all this social discourse amongst that. So this does go into slavery in America, this goes into the racehorse industry, this goes into America today as well. And it's bringing up the discussion of what's changed. And while a lot of things have changed, some things have not evolved as much as they should. And wow, I adored this one. It had me nearly ugly crying at a restaurant while I was reading it on my break at work. It's had me continually thinking about it within the last 6 months after having read it. And it's the best thing that Geraldine Brooks has written so far. I've read some of her other books, I've enjoyed them, and while I've loved those stories as they've unfolded, they did start off a little bit slower, whereas Horse just kicks off from the very beginning. From the very beginning, it will grab you and it will just, it's gonna stay with you, like it stayed with me. I will say though, beware the gut punch. Beware the gut punch, because it is coming. Also, you don't have to have loved horses to love this book. Much like how Carrie Soto is a book about tennis, this is a book about horses, but you don't have to love them to read this. I've had people recommend this back to me and say that they just really don't get horses as a thing anyway, but that they've been able to really enjoy this novel and to get all of the emotion out of it still. Having said that though as well, I've grew up with horses, and I will say all the language used throughout this was spot on, and at not one point did I think, well, that's not how we would describe it, or that's not correct. This was very well researched, which is another reason why I just adore Geraldine Brooks for writing this story. All the different professions throughout this novel feel so real and like she has worked in them herself, because she has researched the heck out of this book. It also doesn't come across as dense though, because of all of the research she's done. She's taken the cream of the crop with her research. She's only showing you what she needs to show you to get across that the people within her novel are at the peak of their professions, so it's not bogged down with any of that, but you can just tell that it is so well researched. So there you go, those were my top 10 books from 2022. There's a lot of different genres in here because for work I need to be across different genres, but these were incredible, and I hope that you find something throughout this list that you want to pick up. If you do see something that you want to read, let me know in the comments down below which one enticed you, or alternatively, let me know the top 2 books that you read in 2022, and that's going to be it for this video. Don't forget to drop a like on it if you haven't already, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to support what I do here. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all the authors that wrote these incredible books. I'm going to see you in another one soon. Bye!